Welcome to Permission to Kick Ass, the show that gives you a virtual seat at the bar for the real conversations that happen between entrepreneurs. I'm interviewing all kinds of business owners, from those just a few years into freelancing to CEOs helming 9-figure companies. If you've ever worried that everyone else just seems to get it and you're missing something or messing things up, this show is for you. I'm your host, Angie Coley, and let's get to it. And welcome back to Permission to Kick Ass. With me today is Dotty Posto. Say hi, Dotty.
Hi, Dotty.
It's always half and half, whether people are going to say their own names or not, but it tickles me every time. So tell us a little bit about your business and what you do.
So I am a leadership and life coach, and I do leadership and team development consulting. So I have been in the organizational change management, organizational development space. I can't do math in my head and I never remember the number of years. So I'm just going to say like the like 1997-ish is when I first kind of got into that space, and been in my own business since 2009. And that always blows my mind that it's been that long. So I worked at Harley Davidson as an organizational development manager towards the end of my time there. I was there 9 years. And I absolutely loved that work. But when I got laid off in the middle of the economic downturn of 08, 09, then I thought, this is as my manager was reading my layoff letter, I thought this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity. And everybody I talked to said, Dotty, no one is hiring organizational development consultants right now. No one. So try to get a job. Just get a job. The economy was just really awful. And so I did try to get a job, could not find a job, interviewed, in several places, did not get any jobs there. And then all of a sudden somebody found me on LinkedIn, and I started more on the organizational change management side because that's what my profile was focused on. And that's what a lot of the history was in terms of some of the positions I had. And so I did that work. And then interspersed, I had some organizational development work, which is where I was working with like the CEO of Waukesha Gas Engines and his leadership team and helping them to be more effective and more impactful, or working with Harley Davidson and working with one of the teams there to build more trust and build more commitment and actually build more constructive conflict is something I really like working with teams on.
I love that. I was writing so many furious notes during that, and I want to circle back to a few of them. One was this mindset that you took while in the midst of something that arguably is really devastating. I've even talked before about how I think people need to allow space for grief after layoffs, especially since so many of us have our identities deeply tied to what we do. And now it's like, what do I even do? Who am I even now that I'm not doing this anymore? So congrats on... I don't even know if it was a conscious thing, but it was a choice to have that mindset for sure, to see it as an opportunity versus a devastating blow, I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think it was. I mean, at that point, I had been in the organizational development space at Harley, which I think Harley Davidson, they had many fewer organizational development folks. Now I think they have two, where they used to have one OD, I'll just refer to it as OD, organizational development, one OD manager for every single department. And so I was paired up with an HR manager for one department. And I think a lot of the training I went through, and in fact, one of the trainings in particular I went through with what was called at the time Inner Strength Associates, and now is called Linda Barron's Institute, where I learned how to do self-discovery with the Myers-Briggs, kind of coming up with the Myers-Briggs in the end. But she doesn't use the assessment. She does a self-discovery process. And if anybody knows anything about Myers-Briggs, I had always tested when I was a project manager and a business analyst, I tested ESTJ. Then when I went through the self-discovery process, I am an INFP, the exact.
Oh.
But part of that was, and this is one of the things I really coach people on, because it was such a huge unveiling for me, like a huge, weight off my shoulders, understanding of myself. Because what I realized was that even though I got very good at project management, maybe not, but I got good at it, and they sent me to more training and I developed those skills. They weren't aligned with who I was. And so I think having had that and having started coaching other leaders on that at Harley really got me into the mindset. And I think I'd always, I think I had the thought in the back of my head that I wanted my own business at some point. And so I think that's what led to that mindset. Back to your question, I wasn't sure I'd make it back.
Yeah, no, I mean, ADHD rambles and shiny paths are always welcome on this show. This is how my brain processes too. I think that's perfect because how many people have that in the back of their head, but they also have some sort of condition attached to it? When I have enough, when I've earned this right, when I feel comfortable to make a move, and then that never really happens. And, I had something similar happen. It's such a goofy story, but it makes me laugh. It's actually the anniversary of it was just a couple days ago. But I once got fired from a job I didn't even have. And that it just makes me laugh because I had left my corporate job as a copywriter to start my business. And suffice it to say, I hadn't really developed a lot of great business skills yet. I was still in that prospect a whole lot, overload myself, work around the clock to fulfill on these things, burn out, put prospecting on pause to recover. And then that's just a vicious cycle with lopsided wheels that doesn't really get you anywhere. So a few months later, I had the opportunity to go back and do a freelance project in-house at my old job. Well, day 5 of that contract, the whole team got laid off. And I remember being just as devastated as if I was working there because I didn't realize until that very moment that I always had it in the back of my head, you can go back if you need to, which was such a unconscious but self-sabotagey thing to think, that I was already going into the business going, if I fail, I can go back. Versus how can I set this up to minimize my chances of failure and trust myself to figure it out if I do,
Yeah. And 2 things around that. One was, once I started in my own business, I actually had one of the gentlemen who was on the team that I was an OD manager for. He was one of the directors, asked me to come back as the manager for he was now CIO. And I knew in the depths of my heart. And one of my coaches said, Dottie, maybe you need to just go back into corporate. And I knew from the depths of my heart, no. Then the second thing is, just this last December, I finished up a project with Molson Coors, and I had been working with them since 2015. And then I had also worked with them 3 years prior with a project in between. And I was doing organizational change management, which is different from org development. And I was doing it on IT projects. And it's that took me back to 1997, 1998, 2000. And I was like, that's all well and good and that can pay the bills. It's not what's totally aligned to who I am and what I really want, what I know I'm meant to bring to the world. And so it's been these last few months of really focusing on, like you said, prospecting, networking, putting my thought leadership out there. And my husband's like, well, you might just have to take a project. And I'm like, I don't have to, and I can take on different projects. It's just really trying to make sure that I'm not going back. I don't want to go into another full-time gig because I know that it'll just slide me back. And this kind of pivot that I've done since December of really focusing on, leadership and team development and leadership and life coaching, those 2 things, that's really what I'm meant to do. And so just really, I'm not going back. I got, I'm just moving forward.
I love that decision because just like I said, when you have that in the back of your head of I can always go back, I've got a safety net, it winds up, I think, kind of suppressing you giving your all to the thing that you were working on, which has this, self-fulfilling prophecy effect. Yeah. I've realized that about myself time and again with ventures that I've had in the past that failed, that I took the approach of well, I'll kind of sort of try, I'll dedicate what I can to this and see what happens, what the outcome is. And then if it looks good, I will put my all into it. And I couldn't see at the time. I just didn't have, that worldview and that context yet to understand that I wasn't putting my all into it. So it wasn't going to succeed because I wasn't actually trying at anything very seriously. And that's just not a way to set yourself up for success.
Yeah. And I love how you put that. You didn't say it outright, but one of the things that I really coach people on, I met someone today and she's like, oh yeah, the coach, they're the big motivator and they kind of tell you what to do. And I'm like, that's not who I am and what I am as a coach. I am here to help you see your brain. I am
Yes.
here to help you really. And what you were saying is really getting to know your thoughts. Like, how am I thinking about this? Because how I think generates how I feel. How I feel then creates my actions, which then create the results. And there are a lot of coaches that just focus on, okay, what do we need to do? Let's just focus on what we need to do. Where I'm focused on what you need to think first. Like, what are you currently thinking? And how is that creating the feelings and actions and results? Yes. And then what does it need to be to create the results you really want?
And sometimes are the feelings even real? Because that's been a whole big rabbit hole that I've gone down lately, because the thoughts and the feelings that we have, they are just. So I read this book. I don't know if you're familiar with Dan Harris. He was a news anchor that had like a very public panic attack and like freak out, and then delved into the world of mindfulness. And I got introduced to him with this book. It's a perfectly named book for someone like me. It's called Meditation for the Fidgety Skeptic. And I was like, okay, I could be talked into learning more about meditation through this filter. But he basically talked about how much he learned that we're all kind of going through life on autopilot, right? And when the thoughts pop up, we think this is what we're genuinely thinking versus just an observation that happened to pop into our brain. Is it true? Is it not? Isn't it assumption? Is this just like emotion taking over and clouding judgment? Like, there's never as much truth to the first thought that pops into your head as it might seem. And so, like, for instance, if you got offered a new opportunity outside of your comfort zone, this is like a hypothetical to the universe. You got this big dream gig offer and your immediate thought is, I don't think I can do this. Is that true? No. You can figure out a way to do it if you trust yourself to do that. And you are a resourceful person. And I'm going to blanket state that if you're listening to this show, you are smart, you are resourceful, you have got someone in your corner that believes in you. I'm going to speak for Dottie. I'm going to presume on this point. I think she believes in you too. But I'm never going to be the reason that somebody gives up on themselves. So if you trust yourself, then that first thought is not true. I don't think I can do this. Yes, you can. You can figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And something to add to that is that we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day.
Yeah.
60 to 80,000. Most of them we're not even aware of. I mean, they're just like cycling through, and they're not true or false. They just are.
Yes.
What's outside of us, the fact that it's raining, the fact that it's thundering and lightning, that's a fact because it could be proven in a court of law. That's what's true or not true. If it's a thought, it's there, and that thought is going to create a feeling, and that feeling is going to drive what you do. And so sometimes it's good to just observe, oh, why is that coming up? What am I feeling? And what do I do when I feel that way? So that at least you have that level of observation. Because if all we do is say, nope, I'm going to put up I'm not going to think that, I'm not going to feel that, then that resistance creates that thought or that feeling coming back like a 2-year-old with a red crayon in a white room.
Oh, yes. I have joked about that. Like, I think that toxic positivity is basically, trying to force the feelings to not exist because I don't like them and I don't want to deal with them. And to me, that just conjures an image of somebody standing on the shore of a beach trying to hold back a wave with their arms. Honey, at some point, one of those waves is going to knock you flat on your ass, and there's not going to be anything you can do about it. It's going to drag you out to sea, and you best stop fighting it and just let it push you back to shore. Like,
yeah. And I always tell people it's like a little 2-year-old. That feeling, if you push it away and you ignore it long enough, it's going to be just like a 2-year-old going, mom, mom, mom. Mom, nonstop until you allow it. And there's, I don't know if you've ever heard of the organization called 6 Seconds, SIX, 6 Seconds. They do all sorts of work around in the realm of emotional intelligence and emotional fluency. And if you allow an emotion, an emotion, a feeling is a sensation in our body. It's a vibration in our body, different than a sensation, which might be hunger. If I haven't eaten since yesterday evening, I might feel actual hunger. Many of us eat when we don't feel hunger, or the feeling of pain. I had, some dental work done. I am in physical pain from the dental work. but the feeling is just a vibration. And if we notice it and allow it and kind of just acknowledge it, what this organization says is it will flow through your body in 6 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it'll come back, like grief. You know, when my mother passed way too early and way unexpectedly, that came, back time after time, and it still does sometimes, and we want to allow all of it, because if you stuff down grief, if you stuff down loneliness, if you avoid despair, then you stuff down and avoid, you limit Brene Brown talks about this, you limit your capability to feel happiness and joy and optimism and hope and freedom and love, because you can't selectively numb your emotions.
Yes, I totally agree. And when you allow it too, and you don't fight it and you resist judging it, right?
Yeah.
Being angry doesn't make you a bad person. Being sad doesn't make you a pathetic person. Being overjoyed. Like I made a joke earlier because my partner and I are in the process of planning a Disney trip. I finally found a way to write Disney trips off. Yes, government, take that. But I told her, okay, well, if we take these people to the Lion King show at Animal Kingdom, they better be prepared for tears, because every time that final circle of life happens, just like circle of life, yes, I'm going to be happy tears. But I know myself, and if I stifled other feelings, other less pleasant feelings, then I wouldn't have that over the top joy at things that I love. And I want that. I want that enough to make the trade-off that I'm willing to feel the negative in order to feel that high of a positive. I don't know if that makes sense only to me, but that's my life.
It's totally true. I mean, it's, and we don't have to, we can experience it, we can feel it without acting it, without reacting to it. So I was sharing this morning is, if I was angry at my husband for something, let's say he didn't help me with dinner, he didn't help me with dishes, he put all his dishes on the counter, walked away, went out in the garage and did his thing. And I could be very upset and go out there and scream at him, what the hell? Why don't, blah, 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 whatever, and that is taking it out versus sharing it is that I was really frustrated when, I was very frustrated when you didn't choose to help me. And I would appreciate that. And it's just the two of us. I would appreciate help, especially if I'm making dinner. I'd appreciate help cleaning up, and I can share the frustration. I can share the anger. And there are times I want to get angry,
Yes.
And that's okay. It depends on who it is. Cause like my husband doesn't handle anger coming out very well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I used to be involved in a partner who was definitely the typical road rager person. And actually, I told this story once in a group run by our mutual friend, Dr. Julie Helmrich, where I was like, I used to get so frustrated. That was our biggest fight, was the fact that he was a road rager and he wanted me to also road rage and teach people a lesson. And I just told him well, first of all, we live in Houston and people get shot for that kind of stuff. And I'm not willing to risk my life in order to be right. And second of all, the thought that I had, and I don't even know why this popped into my head, but one day it just occurred to me, am I going to even remember this incident in 5 years? Is it going to significantly impact me, the fact that this person cut me off today? Okay, cool. I don't care. I'm allowed to be frustrated that, they did something that scared me or made me upset or anything like that. But I choose to let go of that and just I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and assume that they were rushing to the hospital to save their dying. I don't know, but I'm going to give them a human moment there and not take it personally. And that has changed my life behind the wheel. I'm just so much more. It helps since I'm a digital nomad and I drive from place to place that I'm not spending 10 hours in near heart attack mode. I want to go back to something that you said earlier, because I know that some of the stuff that we're talking about is probably a little bit advanced because you're in the team building and change management side of it. So I wanted, and this was not my strongest forte when I was getting my master's degree, but can you tell us a little bit about the difference between change management and organizational development?
So the way I see it is that change management is one bucket of organizational development. It's one piece. And change management is helping an organization. And I did a lot of IT projects where they're implementing a whole new system.
Yeah.
And you're helping on what they always call the people side of change. You're helping with communication, with training, with reinforcement plans, with what is it today, what is it going to be in the future, and helping humans through the discomfort of change and through
Yes.
the well, I mean, all of it, the trauma, whatever it is, the discomfort of change, and helping them to get through that cycle of change as quickly and easily as possible, and to know that what they're going through is normal. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
They can share their frustration, they can share their fear, they can share it all, and we still want them to continue to move forward with it. Organizational development is bigger than that. It goes, change management is a piece of it, but it might be team development. Let's say you have a team where you've got a couple of people who are really in conflict all the time, or you've got people who are, really Nancy nice person, or nice Ned, who everything's fine in the room. Oh yeah, we'll do that. And then behind the scenes are like, F no, we ain't doing that. I'm not helping with that. There's no way, so whatever conflict is that's going on that is impeding the team from actually performing at their highest, or for producing the results that are expected, is helping that team to, get connected more, build more trust, build more constructive conflict. I love working with teams on how to have constructive conflict. I love the work of Patrick Lencioni, with the 5 dysfunctions of the team. Because if you don't have trust, then you can't have constructive conflict. If you don't have constructive conflict, you cannot have commitment. You're not going to get people to commit, because otherwise, not everybody's, if you can't have a good debate and a good conversation, and sometimes that means some voices might get raised, which some people are really against. They think that's like the worst thing you could ever do. If you don't have commitment, you can't have accountability. And if you don't have accountability, you don't get results. And so many people want to focus on just, here's the results, here are the metrics, go figure it out. And if you got to have that whole foundation, or it doesn't work.
Yes.
And so that's a piece of organizational development, is developing the teams and also developing the leaders.
Mm-hmm.
When I was at Harley and we were doing leadership development, there were so many people who were promoted into leadership. They did a lot of promotion from within. And so they were technicians first, they were experts first, and then they got into leadership. And that transition is often very hard for folks. How do I first recognize what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, and then secondly, build the capabilities around me, and be okay with people being smarter than you, and actually wanting people who are smarter than you.
Yes.
There's so much fear and so much, territorialness, and just fear of somebody taking over or somebody showing me up. And it's like, you want people to be better than you. You want experts in their area and to fill in your gaps, building your job is to build leaders and to build whoever's going to take your place, so that if you want to move up, and if you don't, that's great.
I think that view is perfect. And I'm so glad that I was like, I want to know more about that, share more about that, because I think I have had people talk about how I lead teams, which is one of the things I'm very passionate about. And I discovered that just kind of by accident a long time ago, because my natural leadership style was to mimic what I didn't quite understand, which is I tell you what to do and you do it. And I didn't really understand the resistance that people had to it, the frustration that they had with my approach. So I studied a lot of this stuff and started experimenting on my own with how to be a better leader. And the interesting thing to me was when I discovered that I could let people shine, and that made me look brilliant.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, my job just got a lot easier, because I'm not having to do the work of 5 people so that I can be the smartest person in the room. I get to be the smartest person in the room by guiding the smart people around me and helping them make better choices that both allow them to shine and make my team look excellent. I like this.
And for some people, that's an easy transition. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard because their identity is so, wrapped up in and, just engulfed in their job. And if they were a technician for 5 years, and that's what they knew, that's what, they have a hard time letting go of some of it and, giving it, allowing other people to fail. I mean, that's something that, not a lot of leaders are comfortable with is, how do I let my team fail?
Mm-hmm.
And encourage failure. I mean, that's something I think that you have to encourage failure. My mentor, Brooke Castillo, who in this new coaching certification I'm getting, she talks about you should have, multiple fails a week. Plan, what can I try that I am most likely going to fail at? Because the more you fail, the more you learn, and if you swoop in every time somebody's about to fail and you fix it or you take it over, then they're not learning.
They're not learning anything. And it also, it magnifies the pressure. Like it's such a, I don't want to say hidden or covert or anything, but it's such an unconscious way to like magnify the pressure of any fail. And I know in all of the stuff that I've studied about leadership and management and things like that, we talk about creating psychological safety, and permission to fail means that sometimes these risks aren't going to pay off, but we're encouraging to take the kinds of risks that actually will innovate and make us into industry leaders, where if we fall into that trap that is oh so human, right? Like, I found a way that works. I am comfortable here. I am resisting change with every fiber of my being. No. Well, look at Blockbuster for an example of what happens when you refuse to change.
Yeah, exactly. And the hard thing about it is it's not anyone's fault. Our brain is hardwired to stay in comfort, to avoid pain, to avoid, any kind of exertion, and to seek pleasure. So staying in our comfort zone is where our reptilian brain, it never got beyond that, and also to keep us safe. So it's, this protection mode that it's in. And we have to be able to use our prefrontal cortex to get to kind of manage our brain. And that's really what, I work with leaders in my coaching, is helping them to actually, how do we plan ahead? How do we use the brain, but how do we look at it all? How do we realize what's going on in there? And that's why I meet with my clients every single week, is because there's so much, 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. Yeah. And percent of them are negative, and I don't even like using the word negative. I usually emotions are usually either constrictive, they're going to separate us from ourselves and others, or they're expansive.
Oh, I like that thought.
And so meeting weekly, it's let's look at your brain. What's going on? Where are you contracting? Where are you trying to stay safe? Where are you staying in your comfort zone? So this
is why I'm such a big fan of coaching, and not all coaching. I rebel very, very much, and I will get on my soapbox all damn day long about prescriptive coaching. The people that presume that they know you, your motivations, your goals, and your desires, and that they can come up with a one-size-fits-all solution that everybody fits into this box. No, absolutely not. I'm probably the most frustrating kind of coach out there, and this is why I'm such a big fan of coaching. I probably attract the same kind of coaches to me that I am to my clients. But I used to articulate things that I would say out loud to my coach, Brian. And as soon as I heard myself say it, I realized how ridiculous it was. It made perfect sense bouncing around in the echo chamber between my ears.
Oh, absolutely.
Until I had to explain it to another person, and upon which I instantly realized that I was being ridiculous. And 9 times out of 10, the stuff that he helped me solve were things that I already had the skills to solve. He didn't need to give me a tool. He didn't need to prescribe a fix. He needed to remind me that I already had the tools and the steps. And I want to say that a lot of the things that caused me anxiety and caused me to just overwhelmed spiral of, am I even meant to do this, was that I hadn't taken the time to picture what the end looks like. So I didn't know how to find my way from here to there, and I got lost, and I would spiral on that for a while. So he would tell me, okay, so what does done look like? Oh, you don't know what done looks like. What would help you know what done looks like? What are the results that you're hoping for? And by practicing that line of thought process, it starts to become a much more natural way to disrupt my own anxiety, where, just like you were talking about earlier, it becomes a sensation in your body, a vibration in your body. I know when I start to feel my shoulders come up around my ears, and that knot that pops up right between, right on the right side underneath my right shoulder blade, that is the anxiety that I usually feel around, I don't know where I'm going with this. Okay, Let me sit down and think about, what does this look like? What does success look like? What does done look like? Is that realistic? What do I need to allocate to make that happen? Now, what are the steps? And then I feel better because I'm like, oh, I've got steps.
And it's also helpful and this is, I learned this I did change management for so long, current state, future state.
Ooh.
So understanding where you are now and what the thoughts are. So what's the thought running through your head that's causing you to feel that anxiety?
Mm-hmm.
And when you feel the anxiety, what do? I, go to the pantry and I eat food. I, scroll social media. I check my emails instead of doing the work I need to do. And the result is my business doesn't grow. So understanding current state and then having that vision of future state, what's that intentional place I'm trying to go to, helps you see what are the steps. Because otherwise, if all we do is focus here, we might try to start here and our brain isn't ready for that. It's too much. It's too big to believe that I can do this. I need to know exactly where I'm starting from so that I can actually take the steps, because some people can make a big leap and go, okay, I can jump, 3 steps ahead and I can get in that mindset. I can get in the feeling, I can do those actions. Whereas other people need, okay, I'm going to take this step and then this step and then this step. And knowing that current state is so important to do that.
Oh, yes. And a willingness to be honest with yourself, because I love everything about this conversation and, not judging or attaching any kind of condemnation or anything to the thoughts that pop up. Being honest about where you're at and what you're struggling with is the key to finding something that actually works for you. My partner and I were debating about this earlier. Well, not even really debating, having an interesting discussion about it, because we were wondering out loud why some folks take to business coaching incredibly well. They take the plan, they run with it, they own it, they make it their own, they ask lots of questions, they report back results and like, woohoo, that's what every coach hopes for. Yes, success. And then what's happening with the ones that are resisting, that are doubting, that are stalling? It's not just fear, it goes a level deeper. And so we started kind of bouncing around the ideas, like, what are the reasons that coaching works so well for others and it fails for some and fails for others? And that was one of the things that we came up with. Like, if you're in a state where you are not being honest with yourself about your business reality.
And also just not even your business reality, and not being realistic and not being honest with what's going on in my brain. Or you're ignoring it. I'm not even gonna, because being the observer of your own brain is not something we're taught to do.
No. Thinking about how we're thinking is deeply uncomfortable. Yeah.
And when it is uncomfortable, we push it away.
Things are never as bad or as good as we think they are. It's all on a spectrum, on a sliding scale. And that's why I'm a big fan of, I talk about pendulum swings, like this idea that we have of balance, like we're going to climb up on a pedestal and stand there for all time and never deal with tired knees or the need to pee or somebody trying to climb up the pedestal and knock us off it. Like, that's not realistic. And to be that top person on the pedestal takes a hell of a lot of work. And I know I, for one, am too lazy to be number one at everything. I'm fine settling with good enough and maybe top 10%. Woohoo! I have no desire to be the best because I don't want to work that hard. That's something I know about myself. That's me being honest with myself. So now I can stop beating myself up, stop treating myself as a punching bag for not putting in the effort to be number one, because I don't want it. And that's just honest, right? And so that ties back into the pendulum swing, because I was, we're wired for negativity. That's what helped us survive saber-toothed tigers in the past, right? And so that pendulum always tends to swing toward, here are the reasons why everything sucks and I'm in danger and I'm a horrible person, right? And I'm a big fan of, I started this practice probably 5 or more years ago. I have what I call a kick-ass confidence file, where anytime somebody sends me something unsolicited, nice, a compliment, tells me a result from a campaign I worked on, anything like that, I take a screenshot, I put it in the file. And in that way, when I can't tap into my support network to remind me that I'm an awesome person and these are just feelings that will pass, I will go dig in that file and be like, that's right, I do help people. It's okay. It's going to be fine. Let's just cry it out for a little while.
And, that's where some self-coaching, and maybe you and I can have I'll do a couple of free sessions for you, is really tapping into it from what do you think when you read those? Mm-hmm. What is your thought when you read those testimonials or those thank yous or those gratitude emails?
Sometimes Well, when I'm reading them in the context of going through the folder, it's surprise, because I'm surprised that I have forgotten about that I have like buried it and it is not in my consciousness. And that's why I love that I've developed this habit of gathering those screenshots, because my brain, and I think all of humans' brains, we love to focus on all the struggles and the challenges and the places that we aren't yet that we want to be, that we lose sight of how far we've come. And I always talk about that, like, if you're looking ahead and realizing how far you have to go, also remember to look behind at how far you've come.
And for the business person who doesn't have all of that, because it isn't the file that makes you feel good. Mm-hmm. It's your thought that I forgot I had this, I forgot that I'm really this good.
Yes.
Whatever that thought is, and we could go through that whole thing, but it's your thought that's creating the feeling of, I can do this, or the feeling of confidence, or whatever the feeling is that generates. And then that will then drive you into new actions, because being able to do it without that file, like let's say you lost the file, somebody accidentally deleted it. There's ways to, how do I want to think about this differently? First of all, acknowledging what you are thinking in the moment. I suck. Yes. I'm horrible. This is never going to work. They're
all going to find out I'm an imposter at any given moment.
Yeah. That's a whole nother conversation.
Oh yeah.
But it's, can I acknowledge what I'm feeling and go, okay, I'm feeling this. And if I attach to that feeling, and if I spiral with it and, be the victim and have a pity party, I can do that for a little while and acknowledge this is the result it's going to create. I am not going to get done the things I need to get done, or I'm going to create more spin, and then, be able to shift if we need, when you have the capacity, is to be able to shift and say, okay, what thought would create, what do I want to feel in this situation? I want to feel confident. Well, what thought is going to help you feel confident?
Oh man, that's fantastic. I could talk about this all day, but I know we're approaching time. So what I'm going to say is, hey, share your website. Tell us where we can learn more about you, working with you. I have a feeling people are going to need you and want to work with you after hearing all of this loveliness.
This is awesome. So my website is In Plain, PLAIN, In Plain Sight, SIGHT Inc., inplainsightinc.com. And I've got a couple things that'll be in your show notes. I've got a retreat that I'm doing in Maine. I'll have a link for that, a women's retreat in Maine in October, which is going to be gorgeous.
Love it.
And then I also have, and I'll put in both how to do a free consult with me and how to, I have a free energy assessment that people can take where I call myself the energy coach, which we didn't even really talk about much.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
It's an energy assessment to kind of take a look at all of the things you do, every single thing that you do every day, every week, every month, every year, putting it on paper and I have a whole process that takes them through an analysis that then helps you realize, where am I in alignment with my core being and where am I out of alignment? And then I do coaching with folks on top of that if they need it, if they like.
Love that. That's fantastic. I'm definitely going to make sure they have clickable links in the show notes. Man, this is fascinating. I think we have to sign up for a part 2 later this year. We're going to have to dig some more into this stuff, because I find the internal workings and the brain stuff fascinating. So thank you so much for being on the show, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Angie.
That's all for now. If you want to keep that kick-ass energy high, please take a minute to share this episode with someone that might need a high-octane dose of "you can do it." Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the Permission to Kick-Ass podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you stream your podcasts. I'm your host, Angie Coley, and I'm here rooting for you. Thanks for listening, and let's go kick some ass.